technology work. Great.
Okay.
I'll pass it on to you. Thank you, Mike.
Okay. Well, thank you, and thanks to everybody who's both here and kind of on the internet watching. Appreciate you taking the time. As I mentioned, I'm Michael Ross. I'm with Aidmatrix. I'm the CIO and Vice President of Delivery. And I don't know how many people have heard about Aidmatrix, so I'll give a little bit of background of us. We started in Dallas. We came out of a company called I2 Technologies, which was a for-profit supply chain company. And can everybody hear me okay? Okay, good. And basically, the mission was to see about how you could apply these supply chain and other for-profit technologies to the humanitarian sector to provide those same benefits that have kind of lifted the for-profit world and lift the nonprofit world, those efficiencies, those effectiveness. And so we are an international organization. We're based in Dallas, but we also have offices in Germany and in India. We really work to take these innovative solutions and apply them to the for-profit or the nonprofit sector to get those same benefits. And a lot of the work we do is driven by these partners at the side who I want to thank: Accenture, AT&T, Dell, Microsoft, Oracle, Salesforce, UPS. These are key partners of ours who help us with both subject matter expertise, technology, and as well financial support to help us do our mission. And what we really try and do is help our partners get the right aid to the right place at the right time. And so we do this. It impacts about 40,000 nonprofits every year who use our system. And through their work, they impact about 65 million people across the globe. And they deliver about $1.5 billion to these different supply chains. For example, about half of the corporately donated food in America runs through one of our supply chain systems that powers one of our partners. Almost all of the corporately donated food in the UK, India, etc. So why does this matter for this discussion? And here's a picture of some of our partners. And thank them because they're really, our mission is to help them save the children, CARE, Children's International, NetHope. We also do a lot of government work and disaster. How does this apply to this whole discussion around cloud technologies? And there's really two major themes, and I'll try and walk through it. But we, as a service provider to our nonprofit partners, deliver all of our solutions through the cloud. So when they access one of these technology systems to move this product or to help take a donation or to help ship product in Ethiopia or in Palestine, they do it online through one of our internet delivered systems, through the cloud. And we have dozens of applications they use. Secondarily, as a nonprofit, we have moved all of our operations into the cloud. So whether it's our financials, our email, our hosting of these other solutions, it's all cloud-based, or it will be by the end of 2013. So we have kind of both delivered this solution and helped our partners through this effort, and as well kind of walked that walk ourselves. Transportation system that we help coordinate getting the items moved to the warehouse all across the country. And then a number of the food banks, about 25% or 50 of them, use another system where, and this is used in North Texas, it was actually originated here, and I want to thank the North Texas Food Bank, who was one of the key partners to help make that happen. They then take their inventory from the North Texas Food Bank and expose it to their agencies who can order it, schedule pickup, schedule delivery, all electronically. And so that's all a cloud delivery solution. It provides some of the key benefits is it connects their donors electronically, real-time access, reduces costs. Okay. Any questions? And please feel free to just kind of interrupt as we go. So why did they select to go to the cloud? For their viewpoint, there was no technology to quote-unquote deploy. They didn't have to buy servers. They didn't, there's 20 to 30,000 users on this system almost every week. But they don't have any servers. They don't have any IT staff. They don't have to worry about backups. They don't have to worry about operations. As long as the users can access the internet, they can access these systems. And that's same for their integration partners, the Crafts, the Quakers. As long as they can access the internet, they can be getting donations. They can be moving that product to the people in need. And so there's a quote from the Regional Food Bank of Oklahoma, Steve Moran. And prior to this system, they had 5 people every day working the phones, calling their agencies, making sure they knew who was going to order which food, taking faxes, and getting that food allocated and ready for pickup or delivery. They shifted those people to other productive uses in their food banks because once they implemented this, all that work was just done online through the cloud. And in their journey, they had some challenges, right? They had to make sure that all their users, and they started 8 years ago, had PCs. This is less of a challenge now, right? If you think about 8 years ago, making sure every agency that you partner with has a PC was maybe a challenge. Hopefully today, that's not so much. But they did some things to help encourage that. They changed some of their financial structure so that if a food or a pantry was ordering online, it was less expensive to them than it was to place a phone call. And so they changed some of the financial models. But now they've got 100% of their agencies online, all ordering, and they've freed up staff for other productive use. Okay. Another partner, this is an international example, is Children's International. Their primary mission is to help through hundreds of agencies across the globe deliver services, a lot of educational services, healthcare services, and they really work to collect in-kind donations in the U.S., repackage them, ship them internationally, and put them to good use. They had a supply chain management SCM system that was rigid and flexible, didn't connect internationally to any of their users. It was costing them a lot of money to maintain. So they replaced it with a cloud system from us. And what did they see from this? They had better inventory management because now the people in the Philippines could both put in a request online and then see inventory and place an order online. Where before that was an email or a fax or a phone call, and they could just do that online regardless of time zone, regardless of language issues, because as long as they could work in English and access online. And we actually have some translation tools now too that are pretty cool. One of the things was once they were able to better aggregate all their needs from their international partners, they were able to take a very specific list of their donors and say, we have these 300 agencies and they said that they need this, this, and this. Can you fulfill it? And because it was specific and timely, their donation volumes went up. And so not only did they have lower costs, but they had higher throughput through the system. And this they associated this with there was a $3 million savings, reduction in costs, and an increase. I think they associated a 40% increase in donor volume through the system, just because, again, the connectivity of running in the cloud and not being kind of bottlenecked in a siloed in-house system. So that's a little bit about our partners. About us, it's really, why did we move to the cloud? And so in a lot of ways, I mentioned, we are a services provider. We are not in a lot of ways. We are a services provider to our partner. And so we try to do things to be as efficient and effective for our partners as they are. So some of the key values that we bring to and we focus on are agility, being able to respond quickly, both with new offerings and in times of disaster or in day-to-day operations, really making sure we're there for them when they need us. That we focus on excellent as a product, good response time, good uptime, all those things you'd expect from in a service provider. And whole product management, making sure that we really delivered a customer-focused, partner-focused solution, both internally and externally. So how did this help us? So we moved 100% of our kind of line of business applications to the cloud between 2007 and 2011. So our finance, our payroll, our customer relationship management, our email, all of that now runs in the cloud. And that is typically other solutions. Some of it is our in-house stuff, but it's Salesforce, it is Office 365, it is Google Solutions, it is whatever. And through that, we saw tremendous advantages, and I'll kind of touch on some of those as we go forward. We also eliminated a lot of operational costs internally. We used to have a bigger footprint of people focused on maintaining these applications, maintaining our in-house servers, supporting the users. Really now our internal IT is we make sure we can build a PC, we load it with Office, and it can connect to the internet. And then if it breaks, we do the same thing. But outside of Office, there's no custom apps we install anymore. Because it's all cloud delivery. So when a new PC comes in, it's very easy to set up and prep. When a replacement comes in, it's set up and prep. Goals are to actually move to bring them to that. So now that we will stop the original where the our buy the devices and access remotely. Concept in the industry of provisioning the PC, on that. But iPhone, people brought them in and set them up to use them. Then BlackBerries, and everybody. Then tablets, the iPad, right? For their home use and bringing them to work. How to both support that, encourage it securely, but then also if people are doing it, to on the organization to provision those devices, empower people to do it on their own and make it secure and efficient and change, right? And so that's something as a 2013 goal, which is bad timing because if we did it this year, we're at PCs, but so how is this helpful to us? So we grew in the last 5 years about 500%. So that was really challenging. We've ever gone through a big growth curve, right? And we grew our users that we support about 400% from about 10,000 5 or 6 years ago to about 40,000 now. So that put lots of operational stresses on us as an organization. We went from 9 to 50 people. Partner teammates went from 3 to 50. So in addition to growing 5x internally, we have a lot of partner or contract teammates that join for specific projects and then go do something else and then come back on a regular basis. And we needed to integrate all this. And so the cloud solutions we deployed allowed us to do this in a very flexible way. So if we have partners who are engaging in a project and they're working on Office 365, we can temporarily issue IDs and revoke them or give them access to Google collaborative services we use and then revoke them or remove them very easily. And that can be true if we've got a guy on our team who works in Australia. He integrates in. The only thing that's really unique about him is you don't see email until about 6 p.m. Right? His day starts when we're going to bed. But otherwise, he accesses all the solutions exactly the same from Australia as he does from America. And trying to do that with an in-house set of applications and services securely, reliably, is very challenging. And when we have people in Australia and Spain and England and Germany and Munich, and then this just makes it a lot easier. So any questions? Okay. So how does it support innovation? I talked a little bit about key things. One of the things is that most of the is released to the cloud first. My advances in Office or in server are either cloud and in or cloud first only. And a lot of those cloud first. And so if you want to leverage some of these newer changes that are possible, you can't do it first in on-premise or in-house. You have to do it in the cloud. And so if that's important to you, if you want to transform your business through that manner, you either have to wait or do it in the cloud. And so it's important to us because we are trying to help our partners transform, and they often look to us for guidance in that space. So we have to be there first, understand it, and we have to kind of learn those scars for them. And so we are often in that space. It provides a lot of ramp up, ramp down for our development teams and also for some of our disaster work, but I'll talk on that. What I mean by this is about 6 months ago, we had about 15 people working on a project who we brought in through one of our partnerships, our contract partnerships. And now that's down to 2. And so you get these big spikes, and if we had to provision all those access points and the network connections and all those things, this supports it a lot better. And then in addition, by building our applications to run on the cloud, one of the things you have to do if you create a new application is build a test environment, build a QA environment, build a pre-production environment. Well, in the cloud, that's very easy. And the other benefit is when I build it in the cloud, if you think about it and you plan it out, you're guaranteed that they're all the same. Right? Doing that in-house, making sure that your servers and your release levels are the same is a challenge. Doing that in the cloud, if you make some choices in advance, it's very easy. And so that helps us go through those cycles quicker. And that's this last bullet, this environmental differences between development and production, so that when we go to production, we have a very high degree of certainty of constant quality. And for us, it lowers our maintenance cost and increases our development cost. We are 65% of our investment goes into new functionality, 35 into maintenance. And that's supporting a team or a user base of 40,000 users. So we have a big footprint of users that we support and maintain, but still we're able to leverage a high investment throughput into new innovation. And that's really due to being on the cloud, because a lot of our operational expenses we had over the years have trended down. We pay less for IT admins. We pay less for network admins because we don't pay them, right? They're part of the cloud service that we access. We still have some architects and some design work we need to do. You don't get out of it entirely, but by shifting this, you shift over to somebody else doing it. They do it better than you can do it, usually more securely and less expensively. You know, one of the cloud stories that I'll tell is I was at a presentation. There was a guy from the University of Oklahoma, and he was talking about security in the cloud. 3 or 4 years ago, people were very concerned about it. People still are. And he said he's working on a project where the Navy SEALs are putting some of their collaborative work in the cloud because they found out that it was the most secure environment. Better than they could do in-house, because you've got big teams of people running it all the time. They had to prove it was the most secure, and they have. And so the shift around security and reliability, you're always going to still see issues, but you'll have a higher throughput of reliability and quality in the cloud year over year every time. Louder? I'm sorry. Okay, I'll speak up. Sorry. So how does it allow us to follow the user? This is one of our other quality issues. Again, operationally, and I touched on this a little bit, we support operations and partners in the US. Last week we had people in Palestine and Gaza, the week before in Kenya. A couple weeks we'll be back in Dolo, Ethiopia, and then across the globe. So one of the things we need to do is be able to provide support to our partners. Delivering an internet application, there's a challenge. If you try to access something running in the States from Ethiopia, the distance makes it run slower. You run into speed of light issues with physics, that you can only get there and back so quick. And so the cloud lets us move our workloads to be closer to our users. And so now I'm running it in a production quality European data center, the same way I would run it here. The same management tools, the same operations, the same contracts, the same licenses. Everything's the same, except for it's closer to the users and faster. So the first time we went to do this, we had to do it in the UK to support the UK Food Bank. And it was pre-cloud, and it took us 4 weeks to set up the data center. And they needed it in 4 days, and we couldn't do it. The second time we went to do it, to set up an international data center, we did it in Hong Kong for the tsunami response in Japan in 2011. It took us 2 hours. That night, we deployed an application, we selected the data center, and it was there. And it's a transformative difference in our ability to service our customers, right? And their experience is much faster, better, more reliable, because they don't have to go 10,000 miles to access over the internet. They go 1,000. And the other thing is it's really helped our international partners, both with the applications we run in-house and our applications we provide, because they're more confident in the quality. They can talk about deploying them more easily to different places, because they know that the reliability and the response time will be there. Is the volume okay? Am I loud enough? Okay. Resiliency. So one of the challenges that you'll always hear about the internet, right, is something will happen and it'll go viral and it'll be really popular and it'll crash the server. So we had what was at the time called the CNN requirement. A lot of our work revolves around our partners in disasters. And in disasters, there's a big spike of activity, either due to just responding to the disaster or due to the media attention to the disaster. So some of our solutions right now are used by New York State, New York City, and New Jersey by the governments and the voluntary organizations active in disaster response performing recovery. And the governor will stand up and say, if you don't know how to donate, go to this site and it'll connect you to the key nonprofits in that area, tell you how to volunteer with them, how to give money to them, or offer products to them, see the needs from them. And that all flows through an Aidmatrix system. It may route to a partner financial engine, but we're the front end of that whole engine. And so we've had this happen where people got on the Today Show and said, if you want to support, was it Ike? Gustav? I'm looking at Katrina. And said, if you want to support this, go to www whatever. And that www whatever was us. And we saw a 10,000x spike. And before the cloud, we had to provision a lot of resources and pay for a lot of resources that just sat there most of the time. After we can see this coming, and we can either turn it up in advance so they're ready, and that can take a few hours, but you can 10x your capacity in 10 hours, or we can have systems automatically do that for us. And so now when a disaster happens, the cloud provides that throughput and that scale. So now we're closer to the users, we've got more capacity at lower cost, and we're able to better service this. One of our in-house examples of this was earlier this year we had to kind of rush a facilities move due to some issues. And so we ran without an office for 3 weeks. And nobody noticed. Our partners didn't notice. Our users got to stay, our staff got to stay home. The only real challenge we have is picking up the mail. Right, and that's because all of their operations are cloud-based. So everything they do in taking a support call, think about it to responding to email, to putting in their time, to doing payroll, it's all online. And this allowed us to run without disruption. And we drill on this every year. We test shutting the office and making sure we can operate. And if we had to do this in a kind of a non-cloud-based manner, it would be very hard. But because we're so oriented around where we work doesn't matter, and that the service delivery is done in the cloud, it makes it very easy for us to respond in that way. And that's something any organization can get. You just have to kind of walk that path. And once you're there, it's very transformative, because then anytime you need to respond, you're able to respond. Some of the lessons, a lot of people will tell you that once you're in the cloud, you don't need to worry about data backup. Cloud will take care of it. It's not true. It's still on you as the technology stewards in your organizations to make sure you have a good backup and recovery. It can be for compliance issues, for audit issues, for archive issues, for data corruption issues, and sometimes the cloud providers go down. Right, even better than you, they still will have a hiccup, and you may need to have a plan to deal with that for a few hours. So quality. How does it help us with quality? I talked a little bit before, but our operational teams are all over, right? We have engineering teams in the US and Asia. We have support teams in the US, Europe, and Asia. And we have implementation teams in the US, Europe, and Asia. So having the tool sets that they use to operate all cloud-based lets them just keep going all the time, regardless of where they are. If Sherry, who lives in Germany, is in Ethiopia next week, she can access all of her internal tool sets as long as she can get to the internet. Nothing changes. And this gives us a lot of flexibility, both as we build our teams, right? Because we can recruit people anywhere. And we can try and pull the best people in regardless of where they live. And like I said, we have a guy in Australia, and he's there not because we wanted him on the Australian time zone, but because he had unique expertise that really added value to our team. And since he's been with us, he's moved from the UK to Spain to Australia. And he's kind of how he's wrapped up, right? That's his life. But it doesn't matter from how he works with us. So it's supported this growth, again, and a lot of that growth has been putting people in different places and making sure they could operate. Lesson learned. One of the things to think about is, especially if you're on the teams that have to figure out when things go down, how to respond. If you're the team that deploys the application in the cloud, who do you call when it goes down? How do you make sure you know who to call? When it was in-house, or your local data center provider, you knew the guy. You knew the president of the data center. Now you're trying to call Microsoft, right? Both knowing who to call, having an escalation path, having realistic expectations around how that escalation path will work are important. Understanding the organization's escalation processes, because if you're engaging with Microsoft and you need to escalate, they're a big footprint. Right, and working through that machine can be a challenge if you don't think about it in advance. We had an issue where they turned off one of our applications by mistake, and fortunately, we'd done a lot of work to build these relationships, so we knew who to call, and we were able to get it turned on over the weekend. But if we hadn't, it would have been 48 hours, right? Because it would have been a big black box. And they're getting better at exposing that, but as you move into it, you need to really think about making sure you've dug into it. So an escalation process is, when something happens and I need help, and I'm not getting the help I need from one of my service providers, right? Say I'm running email in the cloud, and the email's down. How do I push up the ladder to get more attention from a more senior process to get it resolved sooner? So if you think of it, you're working with a local provider and you call them up, and you also know the president. Well, I can call the president of the organization and say, "Hey, John, things are bad. You need to make sure your team steps in." Right? If I call Microsoft, Steve Ballmer, the CEO of Microsoft's not going to take my call, right? But there are steps in the organizations that will be available to me. But you need to know them in advance, because figuring it out with a big box like Microsoft with tens of thousands of people is hard. Figuring it out in advance is not that bad, but in the middle of something is hard. And since I've done it in the middle, you don't want it. Does that answer your question? Mm-hmm.
It sounds like either you come back up to the cloud and it's just as vulnerable as the rest of it, or you still maintain some type of infrastructure.
So we do backup to the cloud, but one of the things we consciously do, sorry, I'm in the light. The question was, how do we back up, since I said we still need to back up? And we do backup, but we back up to a fully redundant and separate technology provider. So if we're running in Microsoft, we don't back up to Microsoft. We back up to Rackspace, so that when something happens on one, the other is available. And it's all in the cloud, yeah. So all of our PCs back up in the cloud. All of our server data backs up in the cloud. All of our data that's embedded into somebody else's application, we pull out and we back up into the cloud. But we back it up to somebody else, so that if something happens here, I can still get to it. We also have processes so that we can bring up the applications in another data center. So depending on the provider and the technology stack, that can be harder or easier. Sometimes, for example, with Microsoft Azure, if you're running an application on Azure, they have, I think, 8 data centers. And so if one goes down, I can get my data out of Rackspace, bring it to another Microsoft data center, load it up, and start. And we've tested that, and it works. And so those are some of the things you need to think about. But it's a great question. And you do need to make sure that as you look at, they're working more and more to make the backups integrated into the solution, which is great because it makes it easier. But it also kind of gives you a single point of failure, right? And you need to always think about, how do I get to my backup if they're also down, right? And how do I recover, right? If you use Rackspace for something and you're using them in the US, well, they also have a UK data center, so I can restart in the UK data center. But just make sure you've thought about those processes so that you have a plan forward, and then you've tested them. Costs. So we've found that hosting applications in the US is 20% less. And if you have to do it internationally, it's 50% less. And it's very dramatic internationally. The hosting costs, they're just a lot more if you try to host something in the UK or Europe for lots of different reasons. But if you run it on an international cloud provider and you're a US customer, most of the time your US rate still applies in Europe or in Germany or in Asia. And if they do it right, the contract still applies. So I don't need to I don't have a separate procurement process. I don't have a separate deployment process. I don't have separate user IDs. It's just one kind of world, and that makes it very easy. Again, it reduces our team. We used to spend a lot more time. This is how we got to the 65% new development. we spend a lot more time maintaining the infrastructure than we do now. We have myself and one other person who really are our infrastructure people, and it's neither of our full-time job. And so this has lowered that footprint, that investment, so that we can focus on new value generation. And I talked about this. Legal procurement, contracting already in place, consistent processes. Please.
Just for context, how large was your technical team before you began your migration?
So it's a hard question to answer because we went from an organization of 9 to 50 over the last 5 years, so we grew, but we had about 2 people full-time on what I would say infrastructure work, plus 2 people contract. And now we're down to probably, if you aggregate it up, less than a third of a full-time. And so it's made a big footprint of difference. And then we had a lot of what I would call shadow IT, especially for in-house applications, and most of that's really gone away. And does everybody know what I mean by shadow IT? So shadow IT is if you go ask the finance guy how to do something in the finance system. That's really something that's a technical question about the application. The finance person is performing a shadow IT function. He's really doing something to be helpful, but if you had a normal or kind of a more traditional support center staffing model, he would go into that. He's getting help because he needs help, and the person is providing it. But if you're in a kind of a traditional roles and responsibility, it's not that finance person's job to answer that question. And we've seen that go down a lot. So whole product management. So as a developer of solutions, we follow a discipline called product management, which is making sure there's somebody who kind of understands the market and defines the solutions and helps them get built and delivered to solve those problems. We do this both for the solutions we provide and the solutions that others provide us. So if we use Salesforce, I have a product manager on the team whose job is to make sure that Salesforce is serving our market needs. And we orient it all around product management so that whenever we look at a solution in-house or external, that we've got somebody looking at the requirements, looking at the delivery, looking at the change control, and making sure that it's successfully servicing the market. And there's a lot of organizations that are moving to this shift. Fidelity is a big one. A lot of their in-house operations are product managed, whether it's a product they deliver to their customers or in-house, because it really gives you the concept of different than project management. Project management starts, you do it, and it finishes. If I'm running Salesforce or I'm running Office 365 for Microsoft, after it's implemented, it's not finished. We're going to be using it for 5 more years. The project may have ended, but a product manager makes sure that continues to live and grow, and the investments and the return continue to improve. So that's a big shift that we've made, and we find that moving in the cloud helps us do it by focusing more on delivery and customer service and less on internal operations. Any questions? That's the end of my chat. Please.
Did you say you implemented Office 365?
Yeah, we run Office 365. Yeah, we implemented the prior version last year, which was called BPOS, and then we migrated to Office 365 this year.
So is that including the Microsoft Cloud email solution?
Correct, yeah. So that's their email, their collaboration tools, their chat, their link, their video sharing.
But are you trying to back up that data set?
So the email data we don't back up. We've looked at their level of services. Some of the cloud data, like Salesforce data, we do pull out and store. So the question was, do we back up the email service that Microsoft provides? And the answer was no, but on other applications we do, even if it is a cloud product. With email, though, we do have plans to make sure that we could route to an alternate email service if Microsoft went down.
We and some of you may know different NPowers around the country have basically TechSoup affiliates that have a specialty now in cutting over nonprofits to Office 365 and getting the nonprofit preferential pricing and all of that Microsoft is sometimes a large organization that we deal with, sort of kind of have a highway to get those lower rates and all of that for converting Office 365.
Right.
Yeah, we
Yeah, we
seeing the cost benefits of that.
yeah, we found the initial cutover to BPOS to be much harder than expected, and then the migration from BPOS to Office 365 to be actually very transparent. They made it look a lot worse. They scared us when they talked about it, but it was actually fairly painless. Any questions?
Michael, for the folks online, could you just paraphrase or
Oh, okay. So Keith was mentioning that Aidmatrix, through our relationship with NTEN and Microsoft and the Empower organization, or sorry, the NTEN organization, has developed a specialty practice of helping nonprofits move over to Office 365. So if you're interested in that, let us know. Some of the challenges that we help smooth over is getting them. Microsoft gives a very good financial discount to nonprofits running on Office 365, but getting it can be hard. And, you know, taking that 40,000 person box and finding to the person to get it approved, to the point where ours expires every year and we have to go get it renewed every year, and then you get a credit, and it's, you know, it's a process and a journey that they don't necessarily make as easy as they could. They're getting better and better about it every year, but it's very financially worthwhile doing it. And then helping you move into Office 365, as we talked about, can be a little bumpy, and so we've got teams that have done that a number of times and help partners do it. Okay. Anybody? My confirmation out space. Oh, whatever. Helping. Thanks.
no, that makes you broke. Are there statistics that you say you're seeing this? Here are, you know,
The question is, on this path. So one of the things to price the work and it didn't matter, right? Not necessarily small, right? We expanded that module to the organization, right? Because they're the change resistance you might. Well, it is a great solution to run in the. Everybody's going to know, right? Making investments. The discussion, right? Putting money on the table, that's a great cost through the cloud to do something in a new way. Point, almost everything has a cloud option. I'm sorry. Okay.